Welcome back, Algebra 1 students, to another Regents Review video. This is the January 2016 Algebra 1 Common Core Regents exam. These are going to be the solutions for parts 2 through 4. These are the open-ended short response questions for this exam. Before we begin, please do not use this video to cheat under any circumstances. Try the problems on your own, then if you need help, come back to me. Or if you were here to check your answers right now and you did it already, great, let's go over them. Hit that subscribe button down below and make sure that you visit my website at www.nysmathreadingsprep.com. And I use the TI Inspire CX. You can find a link on my website to Amazon, and you can purchase it there. I promise you this is one heck of a calculator. Without further ado, I want to get right into this to not waste anyone's time. Let's jump right into the part 2s. Here we go. 25 says the function t of x is shown in the table below. Determine whether t of x is linear or exponential, and then it says explain your answer. So let's take a look at the x values. Each individual x value is adding by 2 each time. Okay, you're adding by 2. Then all of a sudden on the right-hand side, you are decreasing by 2.5 each time, so decreasing by 2.5. So what is this? It has to be linear. So we're going to say this is linear because there is a constant rate of change of negative 1.25, so the slope remains the same. Now, how did I get that negative 1.25? That's just your change in y over your change in x. So that's just going to be negative 2.5 over 2, which is equal to negative 1.25. And that is the slope of this function. All right, that's number 25. Moving on to 26. Marshall claims that the graph below is a function. State whether Marshall is correct. Justify your answer. So in order for this to be a function, it has to pass the VLT, or the vertical line test. Does this function do, well, does this graph do that? Well, let's see. Pass the vertical line test, I don't see any problems here, but then all of a sudden there's a jump. So, and also, I got a little bit of a problem here. There are 2 values of x for this one, well, there are 2 values of y for one x value. So in this case, the x values repeat. This is x equals 2, and this is also x equals 2. So state whether Marshall is correct, justify your answer. We're going to say that no, Marshall is incorrect because there are multiple values of y that map onto the same x value of x is equal to positive 2. You could also say at x equals 2, this fails the vertical line test. Vertical line test, since the x value repeats. And that is how you could explain your answer to justify why Marshall is incorrect. All right, moving on to question number 27. Solve the equation for y. All right, nice and simple. We are going to FOIL this out because this is written 2 times. Y minus 3 is equal to 4y minus 12. You're going to distribute these, so we get, let's see, we get y squared minus 6y plus 9 equals 4y minus 12. We're now going to subtract the 4y and add the 12. Subtract the 4y, add the 12. We then get y squared minus 10y plus 21 equals 0. And now we can factor. Well, what adds to negative 10 and multiplies to give you positive 21? That's just going to be x minus 7, x minus 3. No, I'm sorry. Why am I putting x's? I apologize. These should be y's. Y and y. So y minus 3, y minus 7, that is going to be equaling 0. You do your t-bar, x is equal to 7, and x is equal to positive 3. So to write your answer, you could just say that y is equal to the swirly brackets of 3 and 7. And that would be your solution to this equation. All right. Doing well so far. Let's keep going. Number 28. The graph below shows the variation in the average temperature of Earth's surface from 1950 to 2000 according to one source. Okay. During which years did the temperature variation change the most per unit time? Explain how you determined your answer. So they're basically saying change the most. They're talking about slope. Well, where did it change the most? Now, change the most, it doesn't necessarily mean positive. It just means changing the most. And it looks like that it did a really large dip from 1960 to 1965. It looks like that this is the steepest slope. Even though that it's negative, it's still the steepest slope. So we're going to say in our answer, so we're going to say that the temperature variation changed the most on the interval of 1960 to 1965. You could write it with these square brackets, or you could actually, you know what? Yeah, you could put them as square brackets because those points are included. Or you could say from the year 1960 to 1965. So either one of these would be fine. It's just a way of expressing numbers. It doesn't really matter. All right. And explain how you determine your answer, because the absolute value of the rate of change is the greatest in this interval. Of course, it is the steepest slope. It definitely is the steepest slope. So that is just an explanation, and you could clearly see that this is just such a large dip right here. This is these slopes don't even compare to the steepness of this one. So that's why it is going to be this answer explanation right here. Okay, number 29. The cost of belonging to a gym can be modeled by C of M equals 50M plus 79.50, where C of M is the total cost for M months of membership. State the meaning of the slope and the y-intercept of this function with respect to the costs associated with the gym membership. So basically, you just need to know what is it showing here, because this is a line. That 50 is your slope. That 79.50, that is your y-intercept. So your answers are going to be that the slope is 50, which represents a monthly membership fee of $50. So in order to stay in the gym, you have to pay $50 per month. I don't even know if that's expensive. And the y-intercept is this. So the y-intercept, which costs $79.50, is the cost to join the gym as a new member. So when you go to, like, I don't know, Retro Fitness or Planet Fitness or LA Fitness or any of those gyms, you do need to pay some sort of membership fee to join the gym, and it could be, $79.50. So that's all the y-intercept is, and the slope is your monthly membership fee. And that is the answer to this question. All right, moving on to question 30. A statistics class surveyed some students during one lunch period to obtain opinions about television programming preferences. The results of the survey are summarized in the table below. Based on the sample, predict how many of the school's 351 males would prefer comedy. Justify your answer. So there were 70 people in this survey who were male that liked comedy. Now, of this sample, there were 105 males surveyed. Okay? It says, based on the sample, predict how many of the school's 351 males would prefer comedy. So you could either do one of the following things. You could either take 70 over 105, because that's 70 out of the 105 males that were surveyed, and you get a simplified fraction of 2/3, which is equal to 0.666 repeating, which is just the same thing as saying 66.6%. So 66.6% of the males of the school do like comedy. Now, they're saying how many of the school's 351 males would prefer comedy. So we need to take 66.6%, and you're going to multiply it by the 351 males in the whole school. Well, if you take that number and you go here, so 66.6%. By the way, the percent key is in the question mark, and you could click percent, times 351, and you get 233.7. So that's approximately equal to 234 people. So 234 students would prefer comedy in the school. Now, you could do it that way, or you could do it this way. That's one way. You could do it this way too. You could take 70 over 105, and that's, again, 2/3, which is 66.6%. Then you could just take the 2/3 times the 351 people, and you just get 234. So 2/3 of 351 is 234, which is just, again, same thing as multiplying by 66.6%. It's just another way of expressing this answer. That's basically it. So 234 students who are male would prefer comedy in the school. All right, moving on to question 31. Given that A is greater than B, solve for X in terms of A and B. We're going to get back to that instruction in a second. So first and foremost, I just want you to solve for X. So I'm going to distribute. So we get, actually, you know what? Yeah, that's good. So bx minus 3b is greater than or equal to ax plus 7b. Remember that you're solving for the value of x. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add my 3b on both sides. We get bx is greater than or equal to ax plus 10b. Okay? I am now going to subtract ax on both sides. I then get bx minus ax is greater than or equal to 10b. Let's continue to solve. You could factor out an x, and you're left with b minus a is greater than or equal to 10b. Divide by b minus a on both sides. Oops. Now, you get x is what? I want to go back to what the instructions said, and this is why this is such a horrible, mean question. It says that a is greater than b. What that means is that your A value is greater than your B value. So this right here, that B minus A, be so incredibly careful. This is a negative number. B minus A is a negative number because if A is greater than B, for example, let's just let A equal 5 and B equal 4. What is 4 minus 5? That's negative 1. It's going to be a negative every single time. So this is a negative number. When you divide by a negative number, you have to flip the inequality sign. So x has to be less than or equal to 10b over b minus a. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your answer. You have to be so careful with the instructions on what they give you. But that is how you do question 31. All right, last question of the part 2s. Question 32. Jacob and Jessica are studying the spread of dandelions. Jacob discovers that the growth over t weeks can be defined by the function f of t equals 8 times 2 raised to the t. Jessica finds that the growth function over t weeks is given by g of t equals 2 raised to the t plus 3 power. Calculate the number of dandelions that Jacob and Jessica will each have after 5 weeks. So all you're going to do is you're just going to take Jacob's function and you're going to take Jessica's function and you're just going to plug in 5 for t. So we have f of 5 is equal to 8 times 2 raised to the 5th power. When you plug that into your calculator, you get 256 dandelions. Jessica is g of 5, which is equal to 2 raised to the 5 plus 3 power. That is g of 5 is equal to, well, 2 raised to the 5 plus 3, that's 2 to the 8th, which is 256 dandelions. So, based on the growth from both functions, explain the relationship between f of t and g of t. So, the relationship is f of t is equal to g of t for all values of t. Because the functions are I'm going to say the functions are defined as the same equation. And if you want to if you want to justify, I'm going to show you the justification right now. But if you want to justify why it's the same equation, take f of t. F of t is equal to 8 times 2 raised to the t power. F of t can be rewritten as 2 to the 3rd times 2 to the t power. When you have the same bases, you could actually add the exponents. So this is going to be f of t is equal to 2 raised to the 3 plus t power, which is then equal to g of t. Based off of this, f of t is equal to g of t. So it is, in fact, the exact same equation. And that is your answer. That is the relationship between the two. All right, moving on to the part 3s. The part 3s, here we go. Let h of t equal negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80 represent the height of an object above the ground after t seconds. Determine the number of seconds it takes to achieve its maximum height, and then it says justify your answer. Okay. You need to know that the maximum height is the vertex. Now, what many people did is they set this equal to 0. No. If you set this function equal to 0, that gives you the starting launch time, and by the time the what is this, a rocket? No, okay, just an object. But if you throw an object, that's time t equals 0, and then whatever that number is for the other number that where this function's equal to 0, that's where the object lands after how many seconds. So we're not setting this equal to 0. We actually need to use the formula negative b over 2a. Well, what is this? Negative b over 2a represents the axis of symmetry. Know this formula. This is the axis of symmetry formula. Now, the axis of symmetry gives you the x value of the vertex, if you didn't know that. It gives you the x value of the vertex, because this is x equals negative b over 2a. So, I'm just going to read you my answer key. H of t achieves its maximum height at its vertex. Use the axis of symmetry formula, negative b over 2a, to find this x value. Great. So negative b over 2a, that's going to be negative 64 all over 2 times negative 16. That's going to be negative 64 over negative 32. That's going to be 2. So your answer is just going to be the object achieves a max height after 2 seconds. So 2 seconds. Let me just get rid of that. 2 seconds is your answer. Now, state the time. Okay, Remember how I just said time interval before and I said don't set it equal to 0? Yeah, that's for this part. But now for this part, it says state the time interval in seconds during which the height of the object decreases. Okay, so you could either do this one or two ways. I like it this way. If you actually set this function equal to 0 and solve, you know that it's decreasing from the vertex to its ending value. So if you take h of t and you set this equal to 0, watch what happens. Negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80 equals 0. I'm going to do this right now just to make my life so much easier. Menu, algebra, polynomial tools, find the real roots. Hold on one second. Menu, algebra, poly tools, find the roots of negative 16t squared plus 64t plus 80. Why am I doing this, folks? Because Trevor is too lazy to factor. So I want to find the roots right now. The roots are negative 1 and 5. So that means, folks, that this is going to be t plus 1, t minus... Wait, hold on a second. Yeah, t plus 1, t minus 5 equals 0. So that means that t is equal to negative 1 and t is equal to 5. These are the seconds, okay? Now, I just said that it achieved its maximum height after 2 seconds. It's decreasing on the interval from 2 to 5. From 2 to 5. Because if you were to draw a parabola, it's saying from 2 all the way down to 5. This is your decreasing interval. And if you don't believe me, graph it. Graph negative 16x squared plus 64x plus 80, and you will see from, let me just get up here for a moment. Did I just do plus 8? It should be plus 80. My apologies. Okay, so I'm going to go up here to a maximum height of 80. Look here. Nope, I'm going to go a little bit more. 120? 200? Sorry, I'm just trying to get a window that's nice for us to see. Okay, so this is your height. Menu, analyze graph, maximum. Click, click. This has a maximum height after 2 seconds. And then after 5 seconds down here, look at that. That's 5 seconds. So it's decreasing on the interval from 2 to 5. So what we're going to say here is, in the explanation, we're going to say that the height of the object decreases during the interval 2 is less than t, which is less than 5. And to explain it, you could just say that the y values, the y values are decreasing as the x values are increasing. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your answer to that part of the question. And that is your explanation right here. All right. Moving on to number 34. Here we go. Fred's teacher gave the class the quadratic function f of x equals 4x squared plus 16x plus 9. State 2 different methods Fred could use to solve the equation f of x equals 0. So the 2 equations that Fred could use, since this is kind of tricky to factor, we definitely know that one method is by the quadratic formula. We know that for sure. Quadratic formula always works. And this second one, we could actually complete the square. So these are 2 methods that Fred could use. All right, so that's easy. Then part B says use one of the methods to state that stated in part A to solve for f of x equals 0 to the nearest 10th. So I'm going to use the completing the square method, just because I think that completing the square is just a little bit faster and easier. But the problem is, ladies and gentlemen, that 4x squared plus 16x plus 9, you have to move the number to the to the opposite side of the equal sign. So we do get 4x squared plus 16x plus something is equal to negative 9 plus something, but we have a problem. In completing the square, this number, 4, it has to be a 1. So what you need to do is you need to divide every single term by 4. So you get x squared plus 4x plus something equals negative 9 fourths plus something. So that is the only tricky part about doing completing the square in this case. Okay, so now we just take half the middle term and we square it to get that value. So we take b divided by 2 squared. That is 4 divided by 2 squared, which is equal to 4. So this is going to be 4 and 4. So now we factor. What adds to positive 4 and multiplies to give you positive 4? That's just x plus 2 squared is equal to 7 fourths when you combine the 4 and the negative 9 fourths in the calculator. Now you take the square root of both sides. Now you get x plus 2 is equal to plus minus the square root of 7 fourths. Now we just subtract the 2 on both sides, and we get x is equal to negative 2 plus minus radical 7 fourths. Now that's your answer, but the question is specifically saying solve for x to the nearest tenth. So we actually need to plug this into the calculator. So I'm going to go to my calculator, and I'm going to plug in negative 2 plus the square root of 7 fourths, and we get that number, and take that same expression and put in a negative sign in the middle. So your answers are negative 0.7 and negative 3.3 rounded to the nearest tenth. So x is equal to negative 3.3 and negative 0.7. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is your answer to that is your answer to the second part of the question. All right, moving along. Here we go. Erica, the manager of Stellar Beans, I don't know what that is, collected data on the daily high temperature and revenue of coffee sales. Okay. Data from 9 days this past fall are shown in the table below. State the linear regression function f of t that estimates the day's coffee sales with a high temperature of t. Round all values to the nearest integer. So what I have to do is I need to go to my calculator and I need to input these values. This is your x, this is your y. Go right to your calculator and start inputting this in here. Go to your list and spreadsheets, and I am going to type this in. So high temperature. So that's my high temperature, and this is coffee sales. You could label that as anything you want. So I'm just going to type all these in. You could skip this if you really want to, because this is a little boring, but if you want to watch me, by all means, if you want to follow along. So I'm just typing in all these values from my table here. So those are the high temperatures, and the coffee sales are these numbers here. I hope that I typed all these in correctly because I'm really not looking. I'm just typing in these numbers here. Alrighty, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to do Control Doc, add a calculator, go to Menu, go down to Statistics, go to Stat Calculations, and we're working with linear regression. Do mx plus b. You could pick a plus bx. I don't like that. I like mx plus b because that is the equation of a line. Your x list is your high temperature, and your y list is your coffee sales, and then click OK. So these numbers you actually need to write down on your exam. So I'm going to go to the left here, and I'm going to write title is linear regression. Now, you don't need to write that down, but I do like to write that just to make sure that the reader or the grader of the exam knows what I'm doing, because this is all in the calculator. Now, your m value rounded to the nearest integer is negative 58. And your b value rounded to the nearest integer is 6182. That's a big number. 6182. So that means that your line, because it's asking you write as f of t, so f of t is equal to negative 58t plus 6182. That is your answer to that part. Then it says, state the correlation coefficient r of the data to the nearest hundredth. Does r indicate a strong linear relationship between the variables? Explain your reasoning. So go back here. You look at your r value, not r squared. You don't want r squared. You want r. Negative 0.94. Is that a strong relationship? Absolutely it is, because it's very close to negative 1. So I'm going to say r is equal to negative 0.94. That is your answer. That's stating it. And then you got to explain it. So r indicates a strong relationship because the value is close to negative 1. Or you could say that, or you could say that the absolute value of r is close to 1. Either one of those answers would be wonderfully acceptable on the Regents exam. All right. And that is how you do that question. Moving on to number 36. No, not 20. Here we go. A contractor has 48 meters of fencing that he is going to use as the perimeter of the rectangle. Remember, perimeter is you're adding up all the sides of the figure that you're working with. The length of one side of the garden is represented by x, and the area of the garden is 108 square meters. Determine algebraically the dimensions of the garden in meters. So the first thing that I want to do is I just want to draw myself a little garden here. So they're telling me that the area is equal to 108 square meters. Now, the length of one side is represented by x, and the width, we don't know what the width is. I'm going to represent that by y, and I know that's going to be a little weird to understand, but we don't have anything. We don't have length, we don't have width, but what we have is area. Well, we know that the area of a rectangle is length times width. They tell us that the area is 108. Plug in 108. Your length is x, your width is y. Don't worry about it. X times y, that's okay, x, y. But I want to solve for this in terms of x. So I'm going to divide by y on both sides. So x is equal to 108 over y. Now, why in the world am I telling you this? You need to use the area formula to calculate perimeter. Let me show you how this works. First of all, in a rectangle, opposite sides are equal. So that's x, this is y. Perimeter, remember what I said, perimeter is the addition of all of your sides. So this perimeter is just x plus x plus x plus, no, I'm sorry, x plus y is equal to 48, because there's 48 meters of fencing to use. Now, x plus x is 2x, y plus y is 2y is equal to 48. But hold on a second, ladies and gentlemen. Didn't we just get the value of x to be 108 over y? We need that, because you can't solve for two variables at once. You have to get rid of one of them. So what I said is, all right, well, they told me what the area is. Let's find x, and then we're going to plug this 108 over y in for x just to solve for one of those variables. Fantastic. So let's take this. 2 times 108 over y plus 2y is equal to 48. So now we get, over here, we get 216 over y plus 2y is equal to 48. Now, in order to solve for y, you need your least common denominator. These all have these two, well, this number and this expression has a LCD of 1. This has y. So the LCD of all of these is y. Now what you have to do is you need to multiply the top and the bottom by y. The reason why, no pun intended, the reason why is that you need to multiply by what you need. You don't need to be multiplying this by y because it already has a y. So now we get 216 over y plus 2y squared over y is equal to 48y over y. Now all the y's in the denominator cancel. That's perfect because we're really looking to solve for this up here. So now we get 2y squared minus 48y plus 216 is equal to 0. Factor out a 2. You're left with y squared minus 24y plus 108, and you set that equal to 0. Now you factor. What adds to negative 24 and multiplies to give you 108? That is going to be y minus 6, y minus 18. That 2 does carry along for the ride. T-bar it. You get y equals 6, y is equal to 18. That 2 cancels over here. Now, we just got our y values. Now, it's saying here, determine algebraically the dimensions of the garden in meters. Well, your y value can be 18 and 6. But the problem with this, ladies and gentlemen, is, are those your dimensions? Yes, they are. Because one of those values, which is like 18 is actually a dimension of the garden as well. So your answer is the garden is 18 by 6 meters. And that's it. If you take 6 and you put it up here, this could be 6. Now, if you take 18, no, I'm sorry, yes. If you take 18, that is your x up here. Because that's your length, that's your width, done, it's over with. We got you have 2 y values. It has to be another one. So that's why it's going to be the garden is 18 by 6 meters. And that's how you do that question. Final question, 37. The Real Good Cinema is conducting a mathematical study. In its theater, there are 200 seats. Adult tickets are $12.50, and child tickets cost $6.25. The cinema's goal is to sell at least $1,500 worth of tickets for the theater. Write a system of linear equations that could be used to find the possible combinations of adult tickets X and child tickets Y that would satisfy the cinema's goal. So they want either 200 people or less. So that is going to be X meaning adults plus Y being the children has to be less than or equal to 200. That's your first inequality. And this represents the number of people. Could it equal 200? Yeah, you could have a full capacity, or it could be less than 200. Now, this equation over here, this is your money function, because we want money. This is your money function. So, $12.50 for one adult ticket, so $12.50 times X, plus $6.25 for the child ticket times Y, has to be greater than or equal to 1,500. Because why in the world are we going to stop at 1,500? We want to maximize. So it could be greater than or equal to 1,500, but they do want $1,500. So ladies and gentlemen, these are your systems that we need to now figure out. So we have these two systems. Fantastic. Now there's a follow-up question. Graph the solution to this system of inequalities on the set of axes on the next page. Label the solution with an S. Oh boy. Okay, so if we go over here, ooh, this is fun. Okay, so my red function is my number of people. So the red function has a y-intercept of 200, and it is decreasing by a slope of 1 over 1. The reason why is if you move that x over, this is really y is less than or equal to negative x plus 200. Okay, so I'm going down by 1. Down by 1. Okay, I'm getting bored. So I'm going to just draw a line. I have the attention span of a gnat, and that is no joke because I get bored very easily. And it surprises me that I actually complete these videos a lot. And it stops at 200 down here. Okay. Now, keep in mind that it is a solid line because it is less than or equal to. So, label it x plus y is less than or equal to 200. And it is, in fact, shading below. Okay? Then over here, this function, just take my word for it, it has a y-intercept of 240 if you simplify as much as you possibly can, and it has a slope of down 2 boxes and to the right 1. Down 2 to the right 1, down 2 to the right 1. Ooh, it intersects right there. They might ask a question about that because they usually do. And you just keep on going. So down 2 boxes and to the right 1. And that you could easily solve for by simplifying that inequality into a workable form. All right, and this green line is solid as well, and this is 1250x plus 625y, and that is greater than or equal to 1500, and that is shading above this way. Okay, so your solution set is right here in the shaded region. Now we're good. So now we just graphed it. So now let's figure out this question here. Marta claims that that selling 30 adult tickets and 80 child tickets would result in meeting the cinema's goal. Explain whether she is correct or incorrect based on the graph shown. So she says 30 adult, 80 child. Well, if we take a look here, 30 adult, because adults are down here. These are adults, because adults are the X values and the childs are the Y. So childs are over here. So we need to figure out, well, 30, 80. So 30 adult and then 80 child tickets. So this is the point 30, 80, and this is, wait a minute. What's this person? Marta. I put Maria on my answer key. This is Marta's point. So we're going to say that Marta is incorrect because the point 30, 80 does not lie within the solution set. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is how you do the part 4 question. All right. I hope that this video helps. Hit that subscribe button down below and make sure that you visit my website at www.nysmathreadersprep.com for more content in Algebra 1 and other high school math subjects. And I hope to see you soon.